everything. I thought that when I grew up, I was going to be an amazing mom. I really did. I thought I would gather the children around the table at night in their homemade clothing. And we would have homemade dinner with homemade bread and homemade butter from the cow that I milked out back. And then I thought I'd be one of those cool homeschool moms that teaches their kids math lessons in the grocery store. And I can tell you the only math lessons my kids have ever heard in a grocery store is, I am counting to 3.
We are Moms Unhinged, a nationally touring stand-up comedy show. Join us in our podcast as we explore everything from motherhood, midlife crisis, marriage, divorce, online dating, menopause, and other things that irritate us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moms Unhinged, where we are talking to our amazing cast of comedians who perform with us all over the country. And I'm super excited to be joined today with Stacy Pederson, international speaker and comedian. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's so fun to get to talk. I just love these conversations and getting into some of the nitty-gritty things about, diving a little deeper than we do maybe in our sets sometimes,
Yes.
A lot of jokes about motherhood, but sometimes we get a little serious on the podcast.
Yes, we got to know the darkness of where the comedy comes from.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Real dark. Well, why don't you share with us how you got started in comedy? I remember, so I've known Stacy for, I don't even know how long, 13 years or something like that. I met you super early on at a National Speakers Association meeting. And I was so excited because you just had such a fun brand. And I was like, this is a woman I need to know. So tell us how you got started in comedy.
So total accident. I have a degree in theater. So I was an actress for a while and I stepped away from acting. It's a long story. And I started a children's theater school back in Colorado Springs, and I used to write the scripts for that, and people started asking me to write scripts for other things, and they came out funny. And I had no idea what stand-up comedy was. No clue. Never heard of it. It wasn't until I was 36 that I learned about this thing called stand-up comedy. I had done a one-woman show for a church event, and everybody was calling it comedy. And I'm like, what's stand up? And I'm like, what's that? And so I learned a little bit about it. And then I got hired from that one event to do stand up. And I was like, well, I guess I better figure this out.
I better write some jokes.
It was a brutal road. I literally I'd never seen a comedian I didn't know anything about writing. I didn't know anything. So I just started doing it and learned along the way. And that's how I got into stand up.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And, you really incorporate a lot of funny things into your speaking. I mean, do you call yourself a humorous speaker or how do you define your speaking?
I say I'm a funny motivational speaker.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never heard the word humorist until I started speaking. And I'm like, what's a humorist? And honestly, I just figured it's technically for marketing. I don't think anybody's like, I want a humorist speaker. They're probably looking for one speaker. Yeah. And that is just basically why I call myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got such a good message in your speaking too. So it makes sense to kind of go with the motivational part first and then say you're funny later,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So that's amazing. And you have 2 kids. That's also an interesting thing about how you might define how many children you have.
Yeah. So I have 2 biological children,
Uh-huh.
and both in December, one will be turning 26 and one will be turning 22.
Oh.
And then, so I have 3 stepchildren who I love a lot. Their dad is no longer in my life by choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But thankfully the stepkids are. So, yeah. So I really kind of don't define how many kids I have a lot of times on stage because I don't know how to say that.
Yeah. It gets
Succinct way. Yeah.
it gets complicated because then you're like, well, then what happened? You know,
He was a jerk, but I already fell in love with the kids for being with him for 10 years. So that's.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a period where you had 5 kids, and then how many were teenagers?
3 teens and 2 tweens.
Oh my goodness.
So, like, an example would be 14. They would have, age-wise, it would have been 14, 16, 16, and 18. I
Wow.
think that would have been the age range. And then half the year, the 2 that were the same ages would be like a half a year. They were all both a half a year apart. So then it would have been like 14, 15, 16, 17.
Oh my gosh. That is unhinged in itself. That's all you need. That's unhinged.
It was hard.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yes.
And I can't imagine vacations. Or did you take vacations or was it?
Yeah. So I had this thing that I loved, wanted to take them on road trips and see the country. They are scarred for life. I remember having moments with them where we would take photos and there was always somebody unhappy, always. Because that's how it is. You're always, as a child, you're the one who's least loved.
Yeah.
In your mind, right?
Yeah.
So there's always someone who was upset. And so when we would do a photo, I would say, act like you love each other. And it worked because when they get together and they look at some of those photos, like they've blanked out some of the bad. They're like, yeah, that was so fun and remember when you threw up and da-da-da. Awesome. And it's like a positive thing for some of them. So, but in the moment, I was like, no. Yeah. One time I took him across 14 states.
Oh, no.
And in a minivan.
No.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it was. But it was also good because, and they have the memories. Yeah, we all have the memories.
Right.
So that's probably why they're resilient.
Yeah. You gotta test them a little. You can't just have them have a soft life. You gotta.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great. So tell us one of the other things that the theme of your, that you have both in your speaking and in your comedy is about how you've almost died a bunch. That's how I get to introduce you. Stacy Pederson. She's almost died a bunch. And that is true. And so, we were talking a little bit beforehand about that and like parenting through illness and having kids while you're sick, but how that's also changed your perspective on parenting. So share a little bit about that with us.
So it started in 2011. They thought I got sick from stepping on a rusty nail, and I was in septic shock and almost died. And so I have a journey of over 14 years of an infection that couldn't be killed. And each time it came back, it's come back 7 different times. I've had sepsis or septic shock, and that's how I've almost died. Been in ICU, had major surgeries. And then I found out 2 years ago, it was actually a misdiagnosis the entire time. Yeah. It was never from the rusty nail. My parents were hippies, so it was from drinking raw goat's milk growing up, and it's a rare bacteria. And so the good news is that everything that I went through, it's completely curable. So the bad news is that had it been diagnosed correctly, it was curable. So everything, my journey really wasn't necessary.
Right.
But I did learn a lot, and it did make me a better parent, very much so. 1,000%
Yeah.
changed my view of what it meant to be a good parent when you don't know if you're going to be around.
Yeah. Wow.
Or you can't do the other things that other moms seem to be able to do.
Right. And so what age was that first infection? Were your kids, was it before you had kids or was it?
No. So I want to say I remember taking my son to his first day of second grade, and I was bound and determined to be there that first day. And I remember I showed up in a walker because I wasn't walking. I mean, I was able to walk, but I couldn't walk without a walker.
Wow.
So he would have been 7, which means my daughter would have been 11.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, they were, and up until that point, my kids were with me all the time, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter had never, in 11 years, had really never been apart from me other than when they were at school. And then half the time I was like the mom volunteering. And I did work a lot, but the jobs that I had, including the children's theater, and I was working with kids, my kids could be there with me. So it was pretty dramatic for them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet. Yeah. So that's wild. So you are taking care of your kids and then you have to be in the hospital for, how long were you in the hospital?
The first time I was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And when I left, I couldn't walk. And so I went from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane.
Uh-huh.
And I just, every time I was sick, till the end, because I did fall apart eventually, I got diagnosed with PTSD and went through a journey of just a lot of depression, and just everything kind of felt like it fell apart.
Right.
So that journey of going through that time, it was the 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And how did they deal with that? How did they, handle that?
I remember that first time my son was at Vacation Bible School, and they didn't want me to know. It wasn't until after. And my son is very, very steady. He's my logical, practical, scheduled from birth. He was so scheduled. I remember, and this is true, he rarely talks because he's very man in that way. Everything's just a grunt or a yes or a no. And at 3, I would be reading him a bedtime story or making a story up, having him in bed, and he'd scrunch up his eyebrows and he'd go, "What's tomorrow?" And then I would list out what the plan was tomorrow. Well, then the next night, if we didn't follow that plan, he would bring it up. You said last night that da-da-da. And so that is part of one of my comedy bits. It's true. That's who he was.
Yeah.
They said that he had really bad anger and behavioral issues, which is not him at all.
Right.
That VBS.
Right.
And my daughter and I have talked a lot, and I've had them both do therapy, and she is a little bit of the opposite, like wanting to mother me even now. And I'm like, you're the child. You're not in the parental role.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's okay. Like you live your life and you be happy. You don't need to worry about me.
Yeah.
And so they both kind of had opposite reactions, but it definitely changed them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will say, I really believe it's changed them. Unfortunately, because if I could go back and give them an amazing, perfect life, I would in a heartbeat. But they both really impress me with some of their values that they have now and what matters to them in life.
Right.
And I do think some of that hardship is where that comes from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we don't really get to choose what our life looks like. You think it's going to go a certain way, and you don't get to pick, you don't get to pick what issues come up. You just have to deal with them. And, I think it's interesting, like you said, like you you kind of wish everything would be perfect. But first of all, what is perfect? And second of all, who ever has a, life with no speed bumps in it? It's no one.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
I'll say that it did change my perspective and values on how I looked at parenting, very much so, because before I was trying to be the perfect mom with the homemade meals and, volunteering at the school and all the sports. And so they had this cushy, protected, positive life as much as I could, because there's actually more to the story with their real father who also got sick, blah, blah, blah. We won't die. But I remember it was the third time I got sick and I had to have major surgery and they didn't know how it was going to go. And so I put my kids on a plane to stay with my mom and my sister in another state. And I remember standing at the Denver International Airport, watching their plane take off, realizing that I may never see them again.
Wow.
And my thought was, what kind of mom have I been? In that, I used to tell them things all the time about life. You should go for your dreams. You should, put other people first. You shouldn't worry about. And there was a lot of you should, but I had never done it. I was never an example. And I realized that I could say anything I wanted and it wouldn't matter, that my life, I had to live it in a way that was reflective of the values that I wanted them to have. And that was a huge shift. And so that's why I got back into acting. That's why, even as sick as I was, pursuing my goals and my career, because I wanted my son to be able to not basically have to have a woman at home taking care of him. I wanted him to be able to be respectful and open to whoever he fell in love with as a partner and not be worried about that person's career, like a jealousy thing, to be respectful of women in general. And for my daughter, I wanted her to go for her dreams as well, that she didn't have to live this perfect traditional life, because she came out of the woman artist like you would not believe, and so strong-willed, like she'll never be happy being like it's just not who she is.
Yeah.
And so that really changed a lot of how I approached parenting. Is, am I being an example of what's best for their personalities and their future?
Right. And that's so interesting, because I don't think we put enough weight into that. Like the show, don't tell, hey, I'm going to walk my walk. If I'm telling you to do this, I need to show you that I'm also committed to doing this and living my life in a way that is, important to me and not just serving you children.
Yes. Yes. I think there's such a message, a mixed message for us women and girls, that we are somehow supposed to be other people's servants in a way. Like, we're supposed to serve a man. We're supposed to serve our children. We're supposed to serve our friends. We're supposed to serve our work. And we're not servants. We are the owners of our own life. We are the CEO, and we run it, and we get to choose it. And I think motherhood, it gets really complicated that way as well, of the balance of taking care of them, but also reflecting who we are and embracing who we are as the CEOs of our own life.
Yeah. 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 And it's not to say that if that's what you love, if you love, staying home, that's great. I do think that if that's what you feel like you're put on this earth to do, then absolutely do it. I think that being an example and working outside the home and having a career you love is also is so powerful example.
Yeah. like we all have different giftings and we all operate differently. And I think being able to have the courage to operate in your gifting, whether that is being a stay-at-home mom and homeschooling and doing all of those things. Like if that's your gifting, that is beautiful and wonderful. And you are the CEO of, of that life. But on the other hand, too, it's some of us are wired a little different, whether we're artists or just enjoy what we do for a living. And so it's just embracing our uniquity.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. We don't all have to be, like you said, when we were off stage, we don't all have to be at home baking pies, doing.
I tried.
Pie. I can't.
I can't do the crust, y'all.
Oh, no.
I do pudding.
I tried to bake a birthday cake one time. It was so sad. So sad. It just was stuck together with frosting and just the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life. I was like, no, I can do cookies. That's it. That's what you get, guys.
Make amazing cookies.
Cookies.
So
that's my gift.
Yes.
Oh man, that's such a great message. I love that so much. And I'm sure that now that they're older, they recognize that.
Yeah, I think so. Like I'm really proud of both of them because they are so different. Of embracing who they are and their giftings and going after it in their view of the world and not being held back by, well, you should be doing blank. No, they should not be doing blank. They need to create who they are and what works for them. And I believe that for just living a good, meaningful life where you can make a difference for other people is embracing, again, that uniquity that you have.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, one thing I love to ask our guests is, what is an unhinged moment that you've had either in your parenting or just, I mean, I know we all are like, it's a lot, but pick one thing to share of something that maybe.
There's so many, so many. Like which time on the bathroom floor crying? Okay, so I hate it when my kids fight. That was like the one thing that would send me over the edge. And they're so different. And the only thing they have in common is both of them think they're right. So they would argue something to death. And when my son was 3 days old, I laid him down on a blanket, get a little stretch time, and my daughter immediately ran him over with a doll stroller. It started at day 3.
Oh, just rolled right.
She just rolled it. And we were like, Catherine, why did she do that? And she goes, I don't know. I just had an impulse. But they've been fighting ever since. So, but they're really close too. So when they would fight, it would just stress me out. And this is when I was working with, I had 3 jobs at the time. And this is when I was with my first husband and he was sick. And so I had to work a lot. And my kids were at Walmart and I had the children's acting school parents and then I had the other parents and they started fighting in the line at the grocery store. And I freaking lost it. I was like unhinged in line at Walmart. And then I immediately turned around and there was one of the moms horrified, like that she was walking by to exit Walmart and had stopped in her tracks and was like staring at me. And I turned beet red. And then I was like all I was trying to explain. She just walked off. And I was like, I am such a hypocrite because I'm all smiley when I'm working with your children. I'm so fun. I'm Miss Stacy. And then I'm annihilating my children verbally in public. And it is one of my most embarrassing parenting moments.
Oh, man.
Losing it.
Oh, God, that's so hard. I mean, in line too. That's a stressful time. You've got, you're trying to keep it all together there. You want to just get out of there. There probably has already been several fights in the aisles.
Yep.
It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, they're like ramming the cart into each other. Like it just was, it was just a moment. I had a moment, but I have joked about it with them, and they're like, and they said, this is why we're in therapy. But what I used to do when they would fight so bad is when they were little, because you can make them do it when they're little. You can't make them do this.
Yeah.
I would make them sit on the couch and hold hands while they could get along. And then they both had to apologize to each other and then also say, I forgive you.
Okay.
So there was a lot of hand squishing. It's your fault. Until they were just so sick of sitting there. Then they would do it. And then they could get off the couch. And they're like, yeah, that was. And I'm like, hey, they learned to say sorry and forgive. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm hoping their future significant others will thank me for that.
I know we don't always get the credit we deserve, do we? We don't. That's so funny. So they would just have to sit there and then that makes me laugh thinking about them just sitting there so angrily.
Yeah. And holding hands. I had to
yeah.
And I'd be like, look at your sister. And this was before they had step siblings. I'm like, look at your sister. That's the only sister you'll ever have.
Yeah.
Catherine, look at your brother. That's the only brother you're ever going to have. And someday I'm not going to be around. And you're all each other's guys. Yeah. We spent a lot in therapy.
It's so hard. I'm telling you, this is what I always say is no one warns you how hard it is. And you see this line. I remember thinking this is a terrible thing to admit, but I remember before I had kids being like, God, how could anyone ever, ever hit their children? That's so terrible. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. I get it. I wouldn't. I did smack my son across the face in the zoo parking lot when he was screaming one time, but it was very light. But I have gone through therapy for that one. Yeah. He was 3. He doesn't remember. I have done my therapy.
It's amazing. It's amazing how all consuming it is.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And then they leave and you're like, oh, although sometimes I'm like, look it's 8:00 at night and I got nothing to do but lie around and watch Netflix. There is a moment, there are positives, but I definitely miss the busyness and the noise and the kids.
Yeah. I know.
The fighting.
Yeah. The fighting is the worst. It is the worst. Yeah. Yeah. Did you have another, or did you share both of those? I can't remember. You said you had.
Oh, I do have another.
Yeah, we got
moment.
I know.
This turned into a life lesson for me.
Okay.
So this is back when I was trying to be a really good mom, and I had made homemade ravioli, homemade spaghetti sauce, the whole thing. And we lived in a tri-level, so it had 3 different levels to the house, and they were all kind of open.
Mm-hmm.
And the kitchen was kind of off to the side. And I'm tossing to the sauce on my ravioli. And I turn to present this big, beautiful bowl. And I don't know what happened, but it slipped out of my hand. Only it didn't slip out of my hand. It catapulted, flipping multiple times in the air, hit the ceiling, and then crashed on the floor. Well, I like a lot of spaghetti sauce on my pasta. It was dripping off the walls, the ceiling. It was on all 3 levels, carpets, and my daughter and I just stood there stunned. It was I cannot explain the mess of this thing. And I was like, I didn't know what to do. It's on the cabinets, it's all over the walls, it's on the carpet, and you couldn't walk anywhere.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, what do I just froze. And then I had this thought of, oh, well, I guess I just better start. It took forever. It took hours to get it off. There's probably still raviolis screaming in the dark at night in that house. The ghost of raviolis. But that was a life lesson for me, because ever since then, when I get really overwhelmed, like life is just a mess, I'm like, well, I guess I just better start. My unhinged moment with ravioli.
You're staring at the disaster and you're like, all right, let's dive in. Oh my gosh. That is crazy. Don't you kind of wish you had like a video camera of what exactly happened? It's like, I'm like, how did it get so far? Like,
Yeah, because I was holding it and I don't know how it like launched and threw itself multiple times in the air. It was, wow. Yeah. Well, that and probably just the look of horror on my daughter and my face. And she still talks about it to this day too. She's like, remember?
Like we were just those low moments remind us, at least it's not as bad as that, you know.
So if they knocked over milk, I never got upset. It was never as bad as the ravioli.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, Stacy, this has just been so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your ideas about motherhood and how things change along the way. So we appreciate it. And why don't you share with the audience where they can connect with you and find you?
Well, I'm on all the not all, but a lot of the social media, and it's usually just my name, Stacy, Stacy, Pederson, Ped as in David, Erson. I have the worst spelled name. It's so hard, both. And then my speaking is, I have a website and it's my name, stacypederson.com.
Great.
Came up with it all by myself.
Well, we will have a link to all that in the show notes. So thanks again, and looking forward to performing with you again.
Thank you. Same.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe, share, and follow us on the socials to get more comedy clips.